Hey, everyone, I'm Graeme Fox, co-founder and CEO of Societal. Yeah, the three of us went through the inaugural Polkadot Blockchain Academy at Cambridge University last summer during July and August. So it's been a little bit of time since then, but yeah, I could be reunited with you guys.
Yeah, right. So hello everyone, I'm Marcel, and at the moment I'm lead blockchain engineer. I'm working on and for Pendulum, and I've been working on Pendulum for about 2 years now. And I took part in the inaugural Blockchain Academy in Cambridge. And yeah, so far everything is going well. It's been quite some busy months lately because we're working on a bridge, but we can talk about that in a while now. So next, Mathis, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Mathis. I'm the first protocol engineer at Gensyn. We're basically building a decentralized machine learning protocol, sort of like a global supercomputer or supercluster. It's basically supposed to be usable by anybody. So if anyone likes to train some machine learning model, is interested in that, the idea is to be able to submit the models and get them trained on Gensyn. Yeah, and I'm basically working on the sort of substrate side of things here at Gensyn, obviously implementing some palettes, but also dabbling with subsystems and working on an interesting PUAV layer, which we may get into in the next couple of minutes, but that's my short introduction here.
Nice. Yeah. So I actually did some preparations because I was curious, like, what exactly are you guys working on? Like, I looked up Societal and Gensyn actually, and I think that Societal is easier to grasp, but Gensyn, it's like, Mathis, can you maybe go into some details, like how this works and who would be the user? Is it companies? Is it like individuals and everything? Because I think it's quite complex.
Yeah, sure. Happy to dive into some details. So as I guess we're all aware of the sort of recent boom in AI, with ChatGPT and GPT-4 just having launched, I think last week, DALL-E, like all of these image models, and people are very excited to be able to use them and to sort of express themselves in the form of AI models. And so we at Gensyn sort of want to essentially decentralize some of that compute, because obviously there's currently a monopoly in terms of computing power held by, the big players like Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, Google, and the likes. And so the goal is to basically allow or enable anybody to essentially participate in our network to provide compute resources in form of graphics cards, but also to be able to train their own models that they may have created using common tools and common frameworks. And so essentially we would like to, enable anybody to create these models and interact with them. And that's what we're currently implementing. Yeah.
Okay, and for how long have you been working on this?
I've actually been working on or at Gensyn for about a year now. So I just looked at the initial commit, which was the 24th of March. So basically tomorrow, a year ago. And so, yeah, since then we've grown actually quite a bit as a company. We have 6 people in the core team right now working on all sorts of things. Essentially, I'm part of the engineering team, obviously implementing the components, but we also have a strong research focus where we research zero knowledge machine learning, concretely like polynomial interactive oracle proofs, just to be able to sort of prove some of the computation that is being done, because obviously that's one of the largest challenges that a global network is facing like this. How do you actually prove that the computation has been performed correctly and not tampered with by Byzantine actors, if you will? And so that's one of our research aspects, is to try to incorporate some aspects of proof systems, sort of mathematical proof systems, in order to make sure that the computation has been done correctly. And so this is basically what we're gonna implement in the next coming months here. But yeah, my work at Gensyn has been mainly focused the last 6 months actually about on a data availability layer, because we decided to go the route of having our nodes essentially provide the storage as well. This means that if someone is participating in our network, they can in fact provide some of the hard drive capacity they have at home in order to host like machine learning data sets and also the proofs that the system provides. So it's also sort of a availability layer under everything, so that the whole protocol works smoothly. And that's a rough overview of all the sort of things that are going on.
Yeah, but it definitely sounds like lots of pioneering going on right there, right? Because it sounds super unique actually, and I mean it definitely has a use case, right? But I don't know of any comparable projects, so to say.
Yeah, exactly. We're kind of unique in that space because we focus on training. There are lots of other projects that more focus on inference because it's significantly easier to do inference. It's very easy to prove that. There are different projects out there. Yeah, and essentially our uniqueness is the training portion of it all, which is a big challenge and is a largely unexplored territory. But yeah, we have some great people working on figuring out some really solid theoretical solutions for this and currently implementing some of them.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, because you were working with them. I guess you've been working with them, you said, for a year, but yeah, you were doing it while we were at the academy, and yeah, you're telling us about it there, which was very cool. It's kind of cool to see how far you guys have come along.
Exactly, yeah, and the academy has been really a sort of big boost for me. You know, having just no experience at all and diving into Substrate is pretty tough, even as an experienced Rust developer. And I think the academy in Cambridge has taught me a lot personally about how Substrate really works and how the components sort of fit together. This has been just a really great experience. And implementing palettes on a day-to-day level, like we all do probably, is, you know, a fairly interesting experience. And it makes it really easy to do so. I suppose my question to you, Graeme, is like, you know, I wonder, so how much work you guys are doing with palette in terms of like what custom palettes are you guys designing? What is the functionality that you guys are implementing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so maybe I'll give a little bit more of a background about Societal and where we've kind of been since the academy, and then what we're kind of currently implementing. So, you know, Societal, we're building our own parachain for the creation and management of tokenized communities. So really any, you know, community that has a token, NFT project, creator economy, DAO, you know, protocols able to use our platform to be able to manage their community with, you know, proposals, governance, member management, treasury management, you name it. You know, everyone says in Web3 and in crypto that community is your moat, you know, to be able to grow your organization, to grow your project. But really, we didn't see anyone building community management tooling and platform, and really to allow one to scale. So that was the idea behind Societal, and to grow and create that. So since the academy, we have done quite a few different things. I was really just like, we were at the inception phases of that. You know, I just wrote the white paper, and we were just kind of really just kicking things off, which was cool. And since then, we were a part of the Outlier Ventures Basecamp Accelerator program. We've secured 2 Web3 Foundation grants. We've been accepted to the Berkeley Blockchain Accelerator, which has been great, and we're starting that up now, and it'll be a program running for the next 6 months. And then we're also looking to launch our testnet here in May. So kind of an exciting time of development since the academy. About 6 months of development work into it, and finally gearing up to launch that. But what we're specifically doing with, I guess, Substrate and building out our own palettes and systems. So the first things that we were actually looking to implement was updating the governance system that Gavin Wood created for, you know, Polkadot, so governance v1, and now the new open governance system, and bringing those those advanced governance systems, making them available to like all DAOs, all communities, all organizations, because you have some great high-level advanced governance systems that are only available to, you know, the parachains that are able to implement them. But how do you actually make those platforms and those governance systems available to all communities that are there? So we've spent some work, you know, retrofitting those palettes, you can say, to make them available to all the communities that are created on the Societal network. We've also created other governance systems, like a 1 member, 1 vote system for NFT communities, just your standard ownership weighted voting for you know, ERC20 tokens for both Ethereum, and then for also just, you know, fungible tokens that are actually created on our network. And then moving forward, one of the things that we're looking to implement is like a subscription-based pricing system. So one of the nice things about building your own pair chain is that you can control the pricing structure of it, right? About building your own blockchain. So we want to charge the communities a monthly subscription fee to use the platform, so that we can eliminate all the gas fees for the community members, for all the token holders, so that they can actually participate with on-chain transactions without costing them any money. We see that one of the biggest things in DAO participation, community participation, is actually the cost to participate. You're a member of this community, you purchase a token to be a part of the community, and now you have to actually go pay to create proposals and to go vote on them. And especially on Ethereum, you see that these governance contracts still cost a crazy amount, like $20 per transaction to actually go vote or create something, which just causes a lot of apathy for that member to actually be able to go and participate. So again, with what we're doing, we're actually going to eliminate those gas fees for the community members and charge that community a monthly subscription. So one of the kind of the neat things that we're doing, and then also moving to look for cross-chain governance. So how do you help pair chains with their governance systems? They're forced to decentralize right as soon as they launch a pair chain. Might not always be the best use case, but how do you create community management and ecosystem reward programs for their members? How do you do cross-chain NFT governance, cross-chain treasury governance, calling smart contracts cross-chain after a proposal is created? So really just gearing up and ramping into those developments with the pilot work.
That sounds really excellent. I do wonder, though, this sounds really innovative and quite novel as well. Which palette are you guys relying on? Because from us at Gensyn, we, for example, rely on the staking palette quite a bit. Like that's what I work with on a basically day-to-day basis. What are some of the foundational palettes that Substrate provides that you don't have to implement again, but that you can build on top of, so to say?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess you just have like your whole, systems palettes, democracy palettes, governance palettes. So those were just kind of our core foundational strength. Like, and then some just like Nick's palette, just for like being able to name accounts on your platform. So it's like there's so many different palettes out there that you can just instantly plug into your runtime. And just it can be something so small as like the Nick's palette, just creating like a nickname for like an account address, right? That you just like don't have to go build yourself. It's just automatically there for you can use. Or like I was saying before, like the governance system, so the democracy palettes and like the DAO creation, like those were already kind of built there that we could just either modify a little bit to use for ourselves. And now you have these advanced governance systems that instead of taking us a year and a half to be able to kind of design and implement and understand how to do it, in a relative period of time, you can go and use that and use this open source code to be able to go create a new product and be able to show that off and do it in a relatively short period of time. So it's nice being able to work into this ecosystem where there are little things that just kind of come up that you need like a time-based block system, like a scheduling system. Like there's a palette for you to be able to go and just go implement that. So a lot of this work that you don't have to go and redo yourself essentially.
Yeah, I have a very similar experience. What about you, Marcel?
Yeah, so just about what Graeme said, it just was like, okay, but that's one of the key selling points of Polkadot, right? Because you can use so many assets that other people worked on, and you can, because it's open source, you get something from the community, and at the same time you give something, some value with your chain, right? So it's just everyone wins basically. And yeah, I've also, like, since the academy, I've been mostly busy with doing palette development. And I think it's quite cool at the moment because you can do so many things and be a pioneer in your work without having to pioneer palette development, right? Because it's already grown so much, it's mature enough that you don't have to deal with the very basic pain points anymore, but you can just focus on really getting your innovation out to the world, right? I think this is something that really got better over time. I think probably also the Academy helped us a lot here when it comes to this, because when I did palette development before the Academy, that was different, right? It's just, it really helps to know the ins and outs of how everything works, I think. And I don't know how it is for you guys, but to be honest, we learned so much at the Academy, and on a day-to-day basis as a developer, I don't need all that knowledge. I just need it occasionally when you do like important design decisions, right? You don't do them every day, but when you have to do them, I think it's really valuable to have the knowledge that we got in Cambridge, actually. But yeah, I actually, Graeme, when you were talking about societal and the use cases, I was actually wondering how much you can, how much you can use XCM, right? How much value can you provide to other chains? How do you imagine this to work out? Because there definitely is a use case, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so we see like the cross-chain governance kind of happening and almost threefold. So it's like, first is like, how do you have a proposal that's executed on our chain that calls a smart contract on another chain? So, maybe working with like a DEX on Moonbeam or A-Star, for example. So let's say you're an investment-based community and you want to go purchase this token from a DEX. Instead of building that DEX on Societal, you're looking at a DEX on Moonbeam. So you create the proposal on our platform, on our chain, with your treasury on our chain. And then as soon as that proposal is voted and enacted, it actually goes and calls a smart contract on Moonbeam, purchases the tokens, and now you've automatically done that. The second one would be controlling a treasury from another chain. So currently now with like XCM v3, you actually see us to be able to pass like communication between chains. But like, how do you actually control a source of funds that are sitting on another chain so that they don't actually need to be sitting directly or created on Societal's chain? The third one is, and Moonbeam's kind of started doing this, but what would be really cool and how we like scale out Polkadot to be able to grow to other ecosystems, right? Ethereum based chains. But how do you actually use a bridge to have a proposal executed on our chain that calls a smart contract on Ethereum? I'm pretty sure Moonbeam's already doing this right now with the GoLeary testnet. They're calling smart contracts on that testnet from Moonbeam itself. So how do you have like Ethereum based communities and DAOs use our chain, which is currently EVM compatible, and you can have like ownership weighted voting and one member, one voting for NFT communities, use our chain to run their community that actually calls smart contracts and manages a treasury over on Ethereum, right? And so actually just using XCM to be able to provide these different use cases and provide these use cases. So that's outside of Ethereum or outside of the Polkadot ecosystem, but within the Polkadot ecosystem for, various NFT communities or, dApps that are running community management services, right? We're looking to be like the governance scaling solution, community management hub of Polkadot and be able to just run all of your operations from our chain while just keeping your resources or the different applications on the other chains and be connected to them essentially.
Okay, yeah, I see. Makes lots of sense in your case. But Mathis, what about Gensyn? Would you actually profit from XCM channels with other chains or not so much? How do you think this would play out for you?
This is an interesting question. And I think we haven't really explored that XCM space enough to be able to give a concrete answer here. Our primary focus has been more of the internal systems. So going like into Substrate a little bit more, like I said, we've been working on a proof of availability layer. And this sort of goes a little bit deeper than what most sort of palette developers would get their hands on, so to say. It essentially involves a couple of subsystems. Essentially, it's sort of like a lot of microservices, but running inside of a node. So Polkadot implements this as well, and they have Orchestra, which sort of orchestrates, as the name suggests, it orchestrates all the different subsystems to be able to communicate together. And they all fulfill a certain function, just like, for example, there's a bit field that needs to be essentially exchanged in the POAV system in order to know that an item is sort of available. So let's say a sort of training data set for a machine learning job. And through sort of some of these techniques, we're able to make sure that an item is available inside the system. And this really goes deep into Substrate and some of the things that are provided there. It's highly interesting actually to get into this. And that's, for example, an aspect that the Academy has not really talked a lot about. And I really had to dig deep myself in terms of the source code, just to be able to figure out how all the different components fit together. And I was lucky enough to work with Bernard, who is ex-Parity, and he has a fantastic sort of idea about how all these things fit together. So I'm very grateful to be able to work with such many great people to get these things done. And I think that is a really interesting aspect of Substrate as well, specifically the ability to do some of these more complex things that you could not do with a smart contract. And even a simple palette couldn't do this, because essentially this is hooking into the lib peer-to-peer layer. It is essentially capturing messages, pushing out different messages to different peers. And this ability essentially of Substrate to enable us to do that essentially is super fantastic, and is something that is not really talked about a lot. And I think it's worth pointing out in this case that, you know, there's even a deeper layer, and that is much closer to the lib peer-to-peer layer. And there are so many, basically an infinite amount of customizations that one can do in terms of, you know, that sort of development on the node side. Do you guys have any experience with these sort of subsystems on the node side?
Talking about lib-P2P, for example.
Yeah, it's pretty deep.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, I don't go down and touch there.
Yeah, glad.
Yeah, sometimes when I mean, you have to touch the node. Sometimes we added something for integration testing, that you have a manual seal and not just the automatic like time-based thing where you have a new block every 6 seconds, but I want to have a manual seal and integration test so that I can, you know, pop out my transactions immediately, right?
Yeah.
And we added that to the node, and it feels like unexplored territory, right?
Yeah.
Because there are not so many people who actually need to do it, so there are not many resources that you can touch. So I guess it would be really helpful, like in your case, to have someone who really knows how this code works and who can help you, so that you don't get lost.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. It's really an unexplored territory for most people, but certainly worth pointing out and worth sort of being aware in case there needs to be something additional on the node side of things that, you know, the palette just cannot provide due to the constraints, due to the fact that it's written in WASM and this sort of stuff. But yeah, that's certainly an interesting topic.
Yeah, definitely. It just shows the power of Substrate, right? And what you can do. You can either take it from a high level, you know, frame system, just manage the runtime, where you can go deep down into the subsystems, like you're saying, right? It's just fully modular where you'd be able to do that. But I guess, Marcel, we haven't dived too much down into Pendulum. Why don't you give us kind of just more of a further rundown of what you guys are doing and what you guys are working on?
Sure. So slightly before I joined the Academy, we were quite busy already with building our spacewalk bridge, which is bridging from the Stellar network to Polkadot Substrate. And I'm not sure how many people know about the Stellar network, but it's actually quite an OG. It was already founded in 2014, so 8 years ago. And the good thing about Stellar was, at the time, I mean, it still exists, but it's just not as popular, I think, anymore. The good thing was that it's a payment network with super low fees, and it has lots of stable coins. So it was low cost cross-border payments that you could do on Stellar. But the problem is that it does not have smart contract support. So you have all of your cool stable coins, which you can easily on and off ramp, but you don't have, for example, an automated market maker or something. So you do have a decentralized exchange on Stellar. That is a basic order book. So I, as a user, can make an offer that I want to sell my token, and another one makes an offer to buy it, and then this trade happens, right? But this is so much worse than an automated market maker when it comes to liquidity, because you always have to have a matching offer, right? And we wanted to use the Stellar network to make cross-border payments happen easily, but we were noticing, okay, there are no real DeFi applications that you have, and we need them to have enough liquidity. And that's why Pendulum is now supposed to offer all these DeFi apps and bridge to Stellar. So we want to bring the on and off ramps that are on Stellar. Like, to make this point a little more elaborate, it's on Stellar, you have, for example, USDC, you have MXN, like Mexican pesos, you have Nigerian Naira tokens, and you can easily on and off ramp that token. Like if I'm in Africa, I have a way to get my native token on chain and off chain, right? And bringing this feature to the whole Polkadot ecosystem is so cool, I think, because let's assume that we bridge these tokens to Pendulum. Then you can use an automated market maker on Pendulum. Or because we're in Polkadot, you don't have to use something that's on Pendulum. You can also use something on A-Star, or you can choose any other chain that we have a channel to, right? You can use it in any DeFi app. But then we would add an easy way for you to have this on and off ramp feature, and you can easily transfer fiat and digital tokens. And I think this is like really a big win, not just for Pendulum, but for the whole ecosystem, right? And there we are again with why Polkadot is so great and why XCM is so great, because it's just so cool to have these channels to everything.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
it was,
I think stablecoins are massive, right? So it's
yeah, exactly. Stablecoins
massive in the ecosystem to have as just like a tool to be able to use in DeFi and in every platform, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think like Stellar is actually now working on a smart contract platform, but it's still in development. And they also added something like a liquidity pool feature to the protocol, but it's just not as great. Like it's super limited, and there are so many, like there's not just one automated market maker. You can do that in many ways, right? And it would be great to have this variety. So I think this is really, really cool, and I really enjoy doing that because it feels like you're giving some value to the world. Right, it feels like you do something meaningful.
Definitely, yeah. No, it's very cool for sure.
Excellent. So you mentioned also the different types of automated market makers. So does Pendulum implement a sort of constant sum market maker or a constant product market maker? I'm not too familiar with these automated market makers, but I've heard that there's a difference. So how does Pendulum approach the variety there?
Yeah, so I don't know if you know about Zenlink, but Zenlink is actually also, Zenlink is not just available on a chain, but Zenlink has a palette that you can add to any chain. And actually Zenlink then also offers some utility for easy cross-chain transfer. So you can actually create pools with cross-chain assets. So Zenlink is really cool. I think it uses some Uniswap v2 market making. But we are partnering with another project called Ember, and they introduced a unique feature called backstop pools, which is supposed to mitigate the impermanent loss that might occur. Maybe we should not dive into the details here, but there are some, like the Ember project I think is really cool and it's unique, and it's also supposed to launch on Pendulum in a few months. But yeah, as I said, so you are not limited to DeFi applications on Pendulum though, but you can use the whole ecosystem, and I think that's just really, really cool for a user, right? Not being limited.
That sounds super cool.
Yeah, exactly. And also, what do you guys like? Maybe I start. What I was missing in the academy a bit is DevOps. It's such a huge pain point, and I think it's not like the PBA might not be the perfect place to tackle this, but it's definitely, if you're a parachain developer and your chain is live, then DevOps is just so annoying at times because your collator stops producing blocks, you don't get an error message and everything. It's very, very annoying and frustrating. And I think if you look at it, the PBA, okay, it gives you the technical knowledge for palette development, how Substrate works, and DevOps is not necessarily a part of that, but still I think we should improve the resources for this because it's really bad. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I strongly have to agree. So from my own personal experience, we have on GitHub a couple of CI checks that sort of need to pass. And I guess every big project does, like the Rust compile check. They, make sure that it tests and all the tests pass. Of course, that's pretty standard. But what's also just as important is making sure that actually the chain runs for a couple minutes, for a couple hours, that it's able to interact with other nodes, these sort of things. So this sort of goes in the direction of Zoombinets, which I personally haven't really touched much, but I'm sort of looking forward to seeing how this could be integrated into some CI pipelines, just to ensure that, what you're actually building in terms of the code actually, works and doesn't just randomly crash somewhere. But I gotta say, these random crashes really don't happen a lot, because the Rust compiler is just absolutely fantastic at just weeding out all the super obvious bugs and all the super, trivial to solve issues. So, due to Rust, I think we're well ahead in terms of in regards to other competitors that use other languages like Go or something. So Substrate definitely did the right thing by choosing Rust. And yeah, that's just my 2 cents on the topic.
Yeah, definitely. From a DevOps standpoint, we've been spinning up our development, cloud-based development environment, and I think we have like 6 different EC2 instances running on AWS to run our node indexer, our clients, archive node, just everything, all these for the microservices that essentially become part of it. But it's definitely a larger undertaking. So it's nice that there are companies as well that help out with it, like on Finality, for example, just for a node management service, and you can just take the Docker image of your node and be able to spin up different nodes, whether you want a full node, archive node, or whatever, and you can just put the image of your node out there, and you can also have other people run your node as well for your collators, for them to easily be able to spin that up. So it's definitely cool that there are projects out there to help with the node infrastructure and DevOps, but definitely for a testing purpose, when you're running it, and you're trying to run it all locally at once, it gets difficult, and you need to move it to a cloud-based environment almost to be able to run all of the infrastructure that you need to really go and test it. And we're currently working to implement XCM and Cumulus, and have connect to the Rococo testnet and run one locally for us to be able to do that, connect there to run a full pair chain, and connect to some other pair chains with HRMP channels and stuff like that. So definitely from a DevOps side of testing your own chain, and then testing as a pair chain with a relay chain and everything, and connecting to other chains. Definitely some DevOps work to manage and handle, but it definitely comes along. You get used to it, I guess.
I mean, Mathis already mentioned it, Zoombienet, and I think I've tried it, and we also set it up for Pendulum and Amplitude, our Kusama network, and it actually is super handy, because otherwise, if you have to set up your parachain locally, then you have to do all these steps with registering your para ID, then you wait 2 minutes and everything. This is super annoying, and it's great that Parity actually put in the effort to build Zoombienet, because it's a great tool. But testing locally and having a running chain on the internet is different, right? And keeping your chain running is so much effort. And as I said, I'm not sure if it should be part of the PBA, but maybe you should at least point the to-be parachain engineers to some, what do I do if it stops working? You have to lend them a hand and tell them what can go wrong and how to deal with that. I think that would make lots of sense.
Yeah, I think so. And one of the benefits of the academy, like you're saying before, we covered such a large depth of knowledge and topics that's you can't learn all of it in 4 weeks and know it very well, right? But the overview of all of them, and where to go find information, especially either with resources within Parity or the Web3 Foundation, but also just even resources online, and what to look for, essentially, is the biggest thing. that I found coming out.
Yeah, I strongly agree with that. Some DevOps aspects should certainly be included in some other academies in the future, but just one sort of resource to maybe point out in case viewers sort of don't know this, but for me personally, the Substrate.stack exchange has been a very valuable resource. Whenever there's some issue, you can easily search for other people who may have encountered a similar situation. And if not, then you can always sort of raise an issue and just get the feedback from the community. So I think a place like this, like Substrate.stack exchange, is invaluable for anybody, and every great community needs a place like this, and has just been very helpful for my personal journey.
Yeah, right. It's definitely a great initiative, and super nice to have a separate stack exchange just for Substrate topics. And it's also great that, for example, there's also on Element, there's a Substrate Builders program channel where you can also ask questions, but then again, you have to have someone who answers, right? And people are busy. Like, for example, I rarely answer on the Stack Exchange, for example. I guess it would be, in most of the cases, it would be good if it's a Substrate core developer, because they most often are most suitable to answer. But if you ask a question into the blue, then somebody has to answer it. Somebody has to feel like answering it, right?
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Is definitely a good tool.
There's also sort of a thing that I see sort of as a pattern evolving, and it's that especially newcomers who are new to Rust as well, they sort of don't understand the difference between sort of a Rust issue and also a Substrate issue. So people really should be good with their Rust, so to say, because some of these sort of questions I see on that forum, they are sort of Rust related, in relation to borrow checker, generics, this sort of stuff, associated types. But if people are really comfortable with Rust and they understand that, yes, this is in fact a Substrate specific problem, right? Then obviously that forum is the optimal place to ask these questions.
Right, that's actually a good point, that you have to have some knowledge in Rust, some good knowledge.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Because definitely Substrate uses Rust to like the nth degree, to the fullest extent. So from traits, generics, macros, all that stuff. So it's the more you know Rust, the better, for sure.
Yeah, right. I heard that they actually, we only know about our entry exam for the PBA, but I heard that for the second PBA, the exam was even more sophisticated, right? I'm not sure how they do it for the third one, but I mean, it makes sense to assume some level of Rust, because then it makes everything else easier to teach.
Yeah. Everyone, it's easier to be on the same playing field for teaching the class when everyone knows a level of Rust, to be able to get into the nitty-gritty of Substrate without having to reteach that or teach that in the course, because there's just not time to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, this is great, guys. Thanks so much. I just wanted to actually pop in quickly because I have a couple of questions from the people who are watching you. Actually, one of the questions is, have any of you worked with ink already? How was the experience like? So it seems like a great place to start for small projects. Not sure who wants to tackle this one.
I can say that I actually worked with ink before. It's been half a year, I think, but we're actually in the early stages. We built a Uniswap v2 AMM in ink. The experience was okay. It was sometimes a bit annoying, because I think it had still it was ink version 3.0 RC 567, and because of this RC tag, I had some super annoying issue with cargo, because it was using a more recent dependency, although I set it to RC6, and then I had to change, it took me, I think, a day or two to figure this out. But I think ink is actually super great, and I think using WebAssembly for smart contracts is great, and also Rust. I think there are also some efforts to make this more cross-compilable, like to have Solana contracts that are compatible with ink and everything. So I think it's really promising, and it's a great project. What about you guys? Have you worked with ink before?
No, I can't say so. We just did a little bit with using the ink remark smart contracts for modular based and composable based NFTs. We're trying to do like a reputation based system with that, but haven't spent too much time me personally doing it. I have some of a team we've been working with, OK Alice, actually helping us out with that and kind of building a system with it for reputation based voting. But personally, I've not spent too much time. It's always been on the palette side.
Yeah, same here. I also haven't touched ink, but from the sound of it, it sounds really promising as well. And I wouldn't mind getting into this in the future when I have some spare time, of course.
Sounds cool. And Matt, is actually once you're talking, the next question is to you. So a lot of the machine learning, deep learning frameworks and libraries are based on Python. Have you had to create any Python modules in Rust based on the work at Gensyn?
Personally, I haven't had to do that yet. The idea here is obviously to have a sort of lightweight wrapper around sort of being able to use Python to, essentially hook into common machine learning frameworks. So people are usually used to something like PyTorch or TensorFlow in terms of their workflow. And so the idea here is to have a lightweight SDK that talks to essentially our chain, talks to the full node and the entire network. And then you can do functionality like submitting training data, submitting the model, and getting that back. These sort of features will be available in a Python format, in a Python SDK. But I personally haven't touched Python in quite a while, which I'm really grateful for, because I really am not a big fan of Python due to, the fact that it is not really type safe. And, once you go Rust, you can't really go back. That's always my motto. So yeah.
Great, thanks, Mathis, for answering it. Well, I think we really had a fantastic session. Thank you so much to the three of you for your time, for your insights. I think a lot of the people who are watching and who will be watching the recording of it will find it really, really useful. So thank you so much for answering the questions, for sharing your experiences, and hopefully we'll have another session like that. I think it's lots of fun.
Yeah,
Excellent,
definitely. Yeah. Thanks for having us. It was
Exactly.
It was great
Thanks for having us.
It was great catching up with you guys. So appreciate it. We should do it some more for sure.
Right. Yeah. Thanks so much. Have a lovely day, everybody.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.